Funny how life works, isn't it? One minute you think you've got your happy ending, wrapped in silk, sealed with stolen kisses under city lights. The next, you're standing behind a cafe counter, serving lattes and second chances. But here's the kicker. I wouldn't trade this for anything. Not even for him. Not even for the dream he dangled like a diamond in the sun. Because turns out, some dreams are just overpriced illusions. Back then, I was just a girl with big dreams and a soft heart. Dangerous combination, really. I wasn't looking for a prince, and I definitely wasn't looking for trouble. But fate? Oh, she's got a wicked sense of humor. One ordinary day in the most unromantic place possible, he walked in. Not in a tux. No flashy entrance. Just a charming smile, a book in his hands, and a spark in his eyes like he knew a secret the world hadn't caught on to yet. And like the fool I was, I leaned in, heart first. If only I knew. The most expensive lessons don't come with price tags. They come with heartbreak. They say love stories begin with fireworks, music swelling in the background, fate pulling two souls together like some grand cosmic masterpiece. Mine? It started in a bookstore, of all places. Not exactly the setting for a fairy tale, right? No glass slippers, no sweeping orchestras, just the scent of old pages, the hum of whispered conversations, and a moment so small it should have been forgettable. But oh, it wasn't. I was reaching for a book, an old classic, weathered by time, when another hand brushed against mine. Warm, steady, and attached to a man whose smile could probably sell out stadiums. Great taste, he said, eyes flickering with something between curiosity and amusement. I should have just smiled and walked away, but I didn't. Something about him made me pause. Maybe it was the way he seemed so at home among stories, or maybe it was the way he looked at me. Not like I was just another face in the crowd, but like I was a plot twist he wasn't expecting. Dangerous, that kind of look. We talked and talked and talked, not about money or power or anything that screamed typical rich guy trying to impress a girl. No, he wanted to know me, what kept me up at night, what made me laugh until my stomach hurt, what I would do if fear wasn't an option. I remember thinking, no way someone like him, charming, confident, devastatingly handsome, is this interested in a girl like me? But against every ounce of common sense I had, I let my guard slip, just a little. He was different, at least that's what I told myself. The way he listened, the way he made me feel like I was the only person in the world when he looked at me. Dangerous, remember? Because when a man like that enters your life, you don't just fall, you free fall. And I did. The bookstore became our thing. Hidden corners, whispered jokes, fingers brushing against each other as we reached for the same books on purpose. It was intoxicating. No grand gestures, no designer gifts, just stolen moments wrapped in laughter and conversations that felt like poetry. If there were red flags, I didn't see them. Or maybe I didn't want to. Because when something feels that good, you don't question it. You just let it consume you. One night as we sat on a park bench under city lights, he turned to me and said, "You know, I've met a lot of people, but no one makes me want to put my phone down like you do." And just like that, my heart wasn't mine anymore. I had handed it over without hesitation, without caution, without asking the one question that could have saved me. Who are you, really? Because love, real love, isn't about what someone says when the night is soft and the world is quiet. It's about what they do when you're not looking. And soon I'd learn, sometimes the best love stories don't end with forever. They end with a lesson. They say love is blind, but let's be real. Sometimes love is just downright stupid. Or maybe that was just me, because while I was busy getting lost in deep conversations and midnight laughter, the universe was laughing right back at me. See, the problem with fairy tales is that no one ever tells you what happens after the once upon a time. No one warns you that sometimes the prince is really just a well-dressed wolf who knows exactly how to play the part. And he played it well, too well. In the beginning, everything felt effortless. We weren't just two people in love. We were a story unfolding, a secret only we understood. I didn't need extravagant dates or flashy gifts. He knew that. And that was the scariest part. He didn't just know how to charm, he knew how to disarm. He never threw his wealth in my face, never flaunted his fortune. It was always the little things. The way he'd remember the exact way I took my coffee, the way he'd quote lines from my favorite books at the perfect moments. It was intoxicating. It was dangerous. But looking back, there were signs, small ones, quiet ones. The way he always seemed distracted when he thought I wasn't paying attention. The way his phone would light up with messages he never checked in front of me. The way he'd be the perfect boyfriend. Until suddenly he wasn't. The first time he canceled on me, it was no big deal. "Work emergency," he said. "I'll make it up to you." And he did. Charming words, an apologetic kiss on my forehead, a whispered, "You're the best thing that ever happened to me." That was all it took to erase the doubt. But then it happened again and again. Canceled plans, excuses, carefully timed business trips. And every time he had a way of making me feel crazy for even questioning it. "You know I'd rather be with you, right?" he'd say, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. And just like that, my concerns would shrink. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. Then came the note. It happened at our favorite cafe. Just an ordinary afternoon, sipping coffee and minding my own business. When a stranger, someone I had never seen before, slid a folded piece of paper across the table. I almost laughed. What was this? A movie? A mystery novel? But when I opened it, my heart nearly stopped. "Ask him about mysterious project name." 5 words. 5 words that cracked something inside me. It wasn't an accusation, but it was enough. Enough to make me start seeing things differently. Enough to make me finally pay attention. So that night, I did what I should have done months ago. I opened his laptop. I knew his password. He had told me once, in passing, without thinking much of it, and the moment the screen blinked to life, my hands shook. Because there it was, right in front of me. Documents, contracts, emails, and my name buried inside them like a cruel joke. I wasn't his love, I was his leverage. You ever feel your stomach drop so hard it feels like gravity just took revenge on you? That's what it felt like staring at that screen. The words blurred, but the truth hit crystal clear. Every late-night whisper, every soft promise, every stolen kiss. It was all part of something bigger. And not in the fairy tale way I had imagined. I wasn't his partner. I was his pawn. See, love makes you blind. It makes you ignore the small things. The way he always guided our conversations away from his work. The way he dismissed my concerns when I talked about the struggles in my community. The way he always knew a little too much about my world. The people I trusted. The places I felt safest. Because that's what he wanted. Access, information, influence. And guess who handed it to him on a silver platter? Me. I scrolled through email after email, contract after contract, and there it was in black and white. His company was funding a project, a redevelopment deal they called it. Fancy words for what it really was, a scheme that would push families out of their homes, erase small businesses, and turn my community into another soulless high-rise nightmare. And the worst part? My name was right there. I was the reason they got inside, the reason they knew who to talk to, the reason they had trust. I felt sick, my fingers clenched into fists. The man I loved, the man I thought saw me, truly saw me, had been using me this whole time, not for money, not for love, but for power. And I had two options: play the fool and let him win, or set the whole damn house on fire. So I chose fire. The confrontation wasn't pretty. Picture this: him walking through the door, tie loosened like he was just another hardworking guy coming home to his loving girlfriend. But tonight, there was no love left in me. "How long?" My voice was steady, colder than I'd ever heard it. He frowned. "What?" I shoved the laptop toward him. "How long have you been playing me?" His face shifted. Shock, guilt, then something else. Something darker. Annoyance. Like I was an inconvenience rather than a broken-hearted woman standing in front of him, begging for an explanation. "I thought you loved me, not what I could do for you," he finally said, voice even, calculated, like somehow I was the problem here. And that's when I knew. There was no remorse, no regret, just a man who had gotten caught and was mad about it. So I did the only thing left to do. I walked away, but I didn't go quietly. With the help of my best friend and one of his own guilty employees, I leaked everything. Every shady deal, every backdoor meeting, every crooked contract. And just like that, his empire didn't just crack, it collapsed. He lost everything. And me? Well, I lost him. Or so I thought, because what I really lost was the illusion. Funny thing about heartbreak, it doesn't hit all at once. It comes in waves. First, there's the shock, the kind that knocks the breath out of your lungs. Then comes the anger, burning hot and wild, making you want to scream, punch something, maybe even burn his favorite suit just for the hell of it. But the worst part? The silence after. The part where the world moves on. But you're stuck in the wreckage, staring at the ruins of a love you thought was real. For days, I felt like a ghost. Everything reminded me of him. The coffee shop where he first kissed my palm like some poetic idiot. The bookstore where he used to pull me into whispered conversations, making me believe we were the only two people who mattered. Even the damn city lights seemed to mock me, like they knew I had been a fool. But here's the thing about hitting rock bottom. You either stay there or you start climbing. And I chose to climb. I poured everything, every ounce of rage, hurt, and betrayal into something bigger than him, bigger than me. The cafe I had once only dreamed about, I made it real. A little place on the corner, cozy and warm, where people came not just for coffee but for connection. A bookstore tucked in the back where stories lived on, even when love didn't. A safe space, something he had tried to take from me, but never could. At first I thought I'd hear from him. Some grand apology maybe, a speech about how he had changed, how he realized too late that I was the best thing that had ever happened to him. But no, the only thing he ever sent was a letter. No excuses, no desperate pleas, just an acknowledgement of his downfall. Maybe that was his version of closure, or maybe it was his way of making sure I never truly forgot him. But the best part, I didn't need to. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't someone's lesson. I was my own story. Years later, on an ordinary Tuesday, something happened. I was wiping down the cafe counter when the bell above the door jingled, and in walked someone familiar. Not him, but someone who had been there all along, hovering at the edges of my story like a background character I had never paid enough attention to. A teacher, kind-hearted, soft-spoken, always buried in a book at the back of my cafe. He smiled, and for the first time in a long, long while, my heart didn't ache. It stirred. And that's when I realized, love isn't about the grand gestures or the whirlwind romances. It's about the quiet moments, the steady hands, the people who stay when the storm hits instead of becoming the storm themselves. So no, he wasn't my forever. He wasn't my happy ending. He was just the prologue. If you've ever had your heart shattered, if you've ever been played like a damn fool, then stay with me, because this isn't just a story about betrayal. It's a story about survival, about how sometimes losing everything you thought you wanted is the best thing that could ever happen to you. Sounds crazy, right? Trust me, I thought so too. But here I am, standing in the middle of the life I built from the ashes of the one he tried to burn. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Heartbreak doesn't destroy you, it reveals you. So let's go back, just for a moment, to the part where I thought my world had ended. Spoiler alert, it hadn't. It had just begun. After I exposed his dirty little secrets, he didn't come knocking on my door. No dramatic scene in the rain, no desperate declarations of love. No, he did what people like him do best. He disappeared, ran off to salvage what was left of his broken empire. The whispers followed him, headlines about how the golden boy of business had fallen from grace. And yet, no matter how many articles I read, no matter how many times I told myself I had won, I still felt the weight of it all. Because the truth? Winning didn't feel like victory. It felt like standing in the rubble of something I once loved and realizing I had no idea what to do next. So I did what any girl with too much pain and too much time would do. I worked. I took the hurt, the anger, the absolute soul-crushing ache, and I poured it into something real. A little cafe tucked into a street corner where people could sit for hours, lost in conversation or deep inside a book. A place where no one had to pretend to be someone they weren't. A place built on the very thing he had tried to take from me, trust. And let me tell you, there's something deeply satisfying about reclaiming your life, about looking around and realizing that, for the first time, every choice you make is yours. No hidden agendas, no whispered lies, just you, your dreams, and a whole lot of caffeine. But life has a funny way of surprising you. Just when I had convinced myself that love wasn't in the cards for me, that maybe, just maybe, I was better off alone, he walked in. Not the he you're thinking of. Not the man who taught me that fairy tales were just another way to sell wedding rings. No, this was someone different. Someone who had been there all along, sitting quietly in the background of my story, waiting for his moment. A teacher, kind, patient. The type of man who didn't demand attention, but earned it without trying. He had been coming to my cafe for months, always lost in a book, always offering a soft smile, but never more. I had noticed him, of course, in that distant way you notice familiar faces. But I had been too caught up in the storm of my past to see the quiet safety standing right in front of me. That day something shifted. Maybe it was the way he lingered a little longer, or the way his eyes softened like he could see the weight I had been carrying and wanted to help me set it down. Or maybe it was just me, finally ready to look beyond what I had lost and see what I had gained. He placed his book on the counter. "You seem less angry these days," he said with a small grin. I raised an eyebrow. Was I that bad? No, he chuckled, shaking his head. You were surviving. But now, you're living. And damn if that wasn't the most unexpected plot twist of all. We talked, just like I had once talked with the man who nearly broke me. But this was different. There was no urgency, no rush to impress, no feeling of standing on unstable ground. Just two people sharing a moment. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself breathe. See, love doesn't always come crashing in with fireworks and stolen kisses in bookstores. Sometimes it's quiet, steady. It sneaks up on you in the spaces between healing and hoping. And the best part? This time it was real. So if you're listening to this, if you're sitting in the middle of heartbreak, wondering if you'll ever be whole again, let me tell you, you will. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. But one day you'll wake up and realize that the person who hurt you, the person who made you question everything, they were never the end of your story. They were just the lesson you needed to learn before the right chapter could begin. And that, my friend, is how I finally learned the difference between a fairy tale and a real love story. One is built on illusions, stolen glances, and whispered promises that shatter like glass. The other, it's built on something stronger, something unshakable. And I didn't find it in grand gestures or late-night confessions. I found it in quiet moments, in healing, in choosing myself first. Looking back, I don't regret any of it. Not the heartbreak, not the betrayal, not the nights I cried until I couldn't breathe. Because without all of that, I wouldn't be here. In this little cafe, in this life I built with my own two hands, surrounded by people who are real, by a love that is steady. And him, the man who once swept me off my feet and nearly buried me beneath the weight of his lies, he's nothing more than a memory now, a story from a chapter I outgrew. Last I heard, he was trying to rebuild, quietly, carefully, with none of the arrogance he once carried. Maybe he learned something. Maybe he didn't. But it doesn't matter, because his story isn't mine to tell anymore. Mine? It's just getting started. And if you're standing in the wreckage of something you thought was forever, hear me when I say this. Your story isn't over either. You are more than the person who hurt you, more than the love you lost. You are a whole damn novel waiting to be written, and the best part? You get to decide how it ends. So turn the page and make it unforgettable. If you found something real in this story, if you've ever felt the sting of betrayal and learned to rise stronger, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Join the journey with me because you're not alone. I'm here telling stories that connect us, stories that heal. So hit subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep writing our own chapters together. Remember, your best chapter is just ahead.